The first record we have about God making a covenant with man was with the righteous man Noah. Early in the history of the world, God decided to bring a great flood upon the earth. He was going to bring it because mankind had greatly corrupted themselves. But God made a covenant with Noah to save him if he would make a great ark, as God commanded him to do so. Noah kept his covenant with God, and so he and his family were saved when the flood came and destroyed all other living things. Afterward, God also made a covenant with mankind to never again destroy the earth with a flood. God also created the rainbow in the sky as a sign to remind us of that covenant. And although God promised he would never again destroy the earth with a flood, he knew that mankind would again corrupt themselves. And so to preserve righteousness upon the earth, God chose the righteous man Abram, saying to him in Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3, "Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, to the land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and be thou a blessing. And I will bless those who bless thee, and he who curses thee I will curse, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." The Bible record tells how God made several covenants with Abram, but they were all related to his primary covenant to bless him and his offspring. After Abram proved his faithfulness, God made this covenant with him in Genesis 15 and verse 18. "To thy seed I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates." God went on to name 10 peoples that the land would be dispossessed of. And they were dispossessed because they were exceedingly sinful. And after that, God enlarged his covenant with Abram, saying to him, "I am God Almighty, walk before me, and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be the father of a multitude of nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for I have made thee the father of a multitude of nations, and I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee throughout their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God to thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give to thee and to thy seed after thee the land of thy sojourning, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession. And I will be their God." Genesis 17, verses 1 through 8. At the same time, God also gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision, which would be a sign of his greater covenant with him and his offspring. And later God renewed this covenant with Abraham to Abraham's son Isaac, and then to his son Jacob, which later would be named Israel. Jacob and his family were forced to immigrate to Egypt because of a great famine. And over the centuries in Egypt, the descendants of Abraham multiplied greatly, so much that the Egyptians began to fear them. Consequently, they made slaves of them. And eventually the Egyptians even required the sons of Israel to kill every newborn male of them. It was then that Moses was born. When the daughter of Pharaoh saw this baby, she showed pity and raised him as her own. And when Moses was 40 years old, he killed an Egyptian who was attacking an Israelite. Pharaoh heard of it, and so Moses fled to the land of Midian in the Sinai Peninsula. When Moses was 80 years old, the record says, "And it came to pass in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died. And the sons of Israel sighed because of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God saw the sons of Israel, and God took knowledge of them." Exodus 2, verses 23 through 25. At this time God sent Moses to deliver them, and after God performed many great signs and wonders against Egypt, Pharaoh let the people go. Friends, we see that when God makes a covenant with mankind, that covenant will come to fruition. And we thank you for joining us today, and we encourage you to be with us tomorrow as we continue our look at the covenants of God.